Welcome to Purpose 360. I'm Carol Cohn.
And I'm Chris Noble.
And we're on a journey to explore the brightest and most innovative minds and initiatives in social purpose.
Today, companies and brands must stand for something meaningful. They have to have a social purpose and bring that purpose forward to their employees, their customers, and their community.
Each episode, we're talking to leaders at Fortune 100 companies, global brands, social enterprise startups, NGOs, and everything in between.
We'll be taking a deep dive to learn how they are integrating purpose into their organizations
to benefit both business and society for enduring impact. Join us. I'm Carol Cohn, and this is Purpose 360. And today we have a marvelous guest, William Browning from the United Way Worldwide. And William is the Senior Vice President, Chief of Digital Transformation and Technology. So welcome to the podcast, William.
Thank you very much, Carol. And I'm a big fan of your legacy and your history and the contributions you've made to make our communities better. So this is an honor, and you're being too kind with my the magnificent side, but I'm delighted to be here to help with this podcast.
No, I think I just came back from the Arthur Page Society spring meeting, and the digital transformation of communications was a core topic. So this is very timely to have this conversation. Let me back up and just talk about United Way in terms of your breadth a bit, and then you can expand upon this. We all know United Way, but United Way is going through a significant evolution. Certainly, United Way improves lives by mobilizing the caring power of communities around the world to advance the common good. And you do it with a focus on education, income, and health. The scope of United Way is vast. You have, as I've read recently, 2.9 million volunteers, almost 10 million donors worldwide. You've raised over $5 billion with a B dollars. So this is no small organization. You're the world's largest privately funded not-for-profit. And I think you've served over 60 million people that I saw on your website in 2017. So a vast organization. And what else might you add to the vastness so our listeners can truly understand that you have reach and scale and impact?
Well, I think, Carol, what we're about is we really have a local knowledge, expertise. We're a little bit of a strange United Way. We were founded when people of different religious groups came together in 130 years ago in Denver, Colorado. And the strength of United Way is the ability to bring people together to solve and take on some of the more challenging issues locally. So what I would say, all the descriptions you have are absolutely right. What I would put a caveat on that about is we're about helping build the capacity of our agency partners, nonprofits that span the globe today that are in the front lines doing phenomenal work. Trying to really be a strategic partner to corporations and business. We believe that business has a huge contribution to make in philanthropy, especially probably more than ever. And how do we optimize that as a partner? And then we really are looking at leveraging that intimate community knowledge to enable my firm belief is the number one thing we should be working on is, especially in America, is how do we get people to believe that they can actually champion and advocate for the issues in their community and do so in a way that really makes a difference for others? And I believe in the last few years we've lost a little bit of that sense of community. So we really, less people are giving to philanthropic causes than ever before. The dollar amounts are still high because you have major donors that have offset the atrophy of others. But it's really about we're in the humanitarian mobilization business. It is about getting people to causes they care about, to force discussions that need to happen in the country in a productive way, and then really, I believe once you actually empower someone to champion a cause and they step up, the power of the individual is quite impressive when they're actually inspired and engaged and informed.
You're the Chief of Digital Transformation and Technology. So When I'm assuming United Way came after you, and you probably went, "What? United Way, digital transformation? Why did you join the organization?"
Well, I'd run my own consultancy in Denver, Colorado, and was approached in that local market. And the thing that appealed to me about United Way was this notion of that we're not an agency that provides a direct service. We're really this magnificent organization that says, how do you actually bring the power of the whole together? It's that issue of, again, the powerful community convention really appealed to me. When I was in Denver, I was fortunate enough to work with Mile High United Way there, and what happened was it was pretty clear to me working in a local chapter of United Way. We're a federated model. Each local chapter has their own board of directors and their own power, which is a good thing and challenging thing sometimes. It became very evident to me that without really clear national strategies around enterprise systems and people and teams, that even though we were doing great things locally, the whole of the brand from a global perspective wasn't going to be successful. So I did raise my hand and say, I think I could be helpful in driving the conversation at a national level. And I can go through that experience. But at the core of this, my personal mission is about helping people. I believe United Way is quite effective at that, actually. And it really was a compelling vision that attracted me to give up an entrepreneurial company to do this work.
I'd like to know your definition of purpose. There are a lot of words that talk about the work that we all do, from philanthropy to purpose, shared value, et cetera, et cetera. How do you define it for United Way?
For me, it's probably a little more spiritual. I think the first time I discovered purpose in my life was in 1998. I was a senior manager, relentlessly pursuing career goals and aspiration and climbing the ladder at Ernst & Young, which was a fantastic company to work for. And I did my first AIDS ride, which was a bike ride to help people that were really struggling with the AIDS epidemic at the time. And it changed my life. It was a moment of clarity about doing something for somebody else and learning and expanding your boundaries. And for me, purpose, that's exactly what purpose is. And I went on to bring other people into the AIDS ride. And it really, what I came to realize, Carol, was, the AIDS ride was only 4 days of my life where I felt like I had purpose. So it really became a deep introspective factor. I'm like, well, how do I live a purposeful life that, it's not just the 4 days, but every day I show up, I'm doing something that's helping others. So for me, purpose is really profoundly about serving someone else's needs besides yourself. And I can go into more of that, what it means for United Way. But for me personally, my definition of purpose is that a sense that look back at my life and my legacy, have I done the things that were to help other people succeed, have a better quality of life? What have I done as a human being to make the world a bit better than it was when I started my life? And that may be a little bit arrogant, but that's my view of, what is it? I believe, as my mentor said, I needed to be on the bike, 365 days a year, not 4.
That's a great vision. That's a really great vision. So thank you for sharing that. United Way, most of us, think about it. Okay, it's the United Way time and I need to, donate in my workplace. And then I have no idea where the money's going. But gosh, my company they've claimed that they've donated millions, but it's from me. That doesn't work anymore. So can you talk a little bit about that? There were probably many conversations at United Way, and was there one aha moment, or how did National decide it had to significantly evolve? That's the first. And the second part of the question is then, how did you begin to cascade that into the decentralized United Way system?
Yeah. So the first question was, it's actually quite simple. We started asking the question, both locally and nationally, about, what do our customers want? What are they seeking? What I mean by customer, what is needed in the community? What is needed from our business customer? What is needed from an individual donor? And your point is spot on. When you look at the demographic shifting of the workplace, where younger people are coming in and now are, the demographics and the experience have to change. So business customers, they're looking for, efficiency, accessibility. They're looking for, you think about purpose as defined by a company, it's, well, tell me how it's affecting my bottom line. Tell me how it's improving my reputation. Tell me how it's helping retain and recruit people and partnerships. and build relationships. And that, that's, we weren't asking a question of our business clients enough to say, how can United Way really help the business of, our businesses more strategically? And that was the first one. The second one was really all of our work as individual. And one of the things you just mentioned was, really helping people understand, if I make a contribution United Way through my payroll deduction or to a traditional campaign, where does the money go to? What does it
Right.
mean? And so we've done a lot of work on, and again, I think listening and knowing your customer is fundamental. And I think in the last few years, United Way has really, really worked hard. I think we still have work to do, as any nonprofit does, to assess, what the customer needs. But I would argue that's the thing that we're really looking at and asking that question: how are we providing value? How do we get someone to care about their community? How do we get people to come together and realize they can make a difference? How do we help companies, shift this from, philanthropy as a transaction to philanthropy as a strategy for business growth?
And how much was that driven by Brian? I mean, I know from our work with the American Heart Association that Cass Wheeler, who was their fabulous CEO at the time, I mean, he looked into the future and he created this thing called the Passion Project. And he said, if we don't become more than the doctor in the white coat, we're just missing out on so many things, because there's this cause marketing thing happening, and we're not really working with companies, and we're arm's length. So was there an epiphany for Brian? And then also, how did he convince his board?
Well, I think, one thing is that, Brian, I think, did see it coming. And I think Brian's a terrific leader to work for, because he has that tenacity of seeing kind of where the road is going. And then he has the toughest job in this building for sure, as far as directing, trying to direct, loosely confederated, federation. We go with him. So I think the epiphany came from a couple of different things. One is that, if your business model starts to financially have implications, less people showing up and engaging, that certainly spurs a conversation of necessity. But I think more than that, to his credit, it was really about, we say, we need to move United Way from being part of a philanthropic strategy to being a philanthropic partner, strategically positioned in the value chain. So I think the epiphany came from a lot of different areas. And I think the previous point I made was that really trying to take time out and say, are we asking customers the questions we need to ask here? Clearly we have competitors in the marketplace that are coming in and offering, technology solutions that make the lives easier of companies. Unfortunately, those solutions don't have the full holistic capability of United Way, as far as local intimacy of knowledge and understanding how to actually, solve some of these more complicated problems. But I think it's those two combinations. And so I really believe you have to know your customer and ask. Sometimes you have to stop and ask really hard questions. And my view is that we were not. Relevance is a big one. Are we relevant in the issues people care about? Are we providing value in a way that is tangible? And three, are we someone who is trusted in terms of when you make an investment in United Way, you can be assured it's the best investment you're making.
I was fascinated when you unveiled Live United. It was a cause-branded campaign, something like a Go Red. And all of a sudden, I remember I was driving in Kentucky and I saw billboards that talked about Live United. And it also it seemed to me to be, something's really changing at United Way, because you started having a focus. And it was a focus on core issues. It wasn't just money going anywhere in the community. Was Live United a precursor to where you're going today?
Well, United Way has been around 130 years. And so I think that the key to our ability of longevity is evolving. So I look at Live United as, it was before I came on board, but I will say that it certainly was an evolution toward, we're not an intermediary, despite the fact that we have that a business model of taking from an individual and transporting it to the community. There are much more serious pieces of value we actually provide in the equation. So I think Live United was, I think we're always constantly saying, how do we evolve the value for the community, first and foremost, and then how do we actually translate that value to the donor? So I think it certainly was an evolutionary point.
So now let's get into your role. Chief of Digital Transformation and Technology. When we saw the announcement of Philanthropy Cloud, and your partnership with Salesforce. It stopped me in my tracks as, someone that is just a keen observer and, participant in purpose strategy and activation. So give us the backstory. I know that Brian talked to Mark Benioff. They met someplace. Was it, I think, even Davos? And how it came to be.
Well, I think both gentlemen were, have had a relationship, and I think what it came to, the magic really came to part where both organizations really realized their full power and value here. United Way's value is we know our communities, we know where the resources are, where they're needed, and how they can best be deployed, and we're quite effective at that at scale. Salesforce is, I love Salesforce as far as their energy and they have one of the best technology platforms in the planet because they listen to their customer, they're agile, and they move fast. So I think Mark and Brian, I can't speak for them independently, but my observation was it was kind of peanut butter and chocolate, put them together. You really plug the best of community impact and you combine it with an exceptional, seamless, accessible technology solution. So for us, that partnership it advances back to our primary concern here, which is mobilization of people to cause. It seemed like the best way to do that, especially for our business and corporate partners.
So can you talk about what Philanthropy Cloud is? Because it's accessible, it's seamless, it's mobile. And I don't think that many of our listeners have been exposed to it yet. But it's a very different way to engage with an employee population.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I when I think about Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud, the best way to think about it is it really is a seamless, platform or technology experience for an employee to find the causes they care about, and that they can really engage in community differently. We have so many social media platforms and tools available to us that, frankly, don't allow an individual to be authentic and engage in a really valuable way to society. So Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud is a refreshing platform that is all about one thing, about helping people understand the issues in a community and how they can actually champion and engage against those causes and issues, whether it's I show up to give money, I show up to volunteer, I plug in for advocacy, or I simply am just interested in learning about the perspective of a community. So you can think about it. I don't want to, give Amazon too much credit, but like in Amazon of philanthropy or Netflix of a philanthropy, the system also intelligently learns who you are as an individual, and over time, will start serving you content curated for you based upon what you care about. Care about homelessness? It'll feed you localized information about agencies or partners or strategies that are happening against that topic. And this is a big thing for United Way because this is a marketplace approach where, traditionally United Way campaigns have been, somewhat closed. You give to United Way and then, we distribute the money to agencies that are doing good work. It's not a bad model, but this marketplace is really getting to a consumer, an individual, and allowing them to have choice. It really allows them to have their own experience. What's cool about Philanthropy Cloud is it's also built for the business. So while the individual has the flexibility and choice and the can browse and find content curated for their individual interest and their profile, it also allows the company to highlight the things they're concerned about. So the company can profile their campaigns. They can profile the United Way. They can profile American Heart Association if they do a walk. They can talk about social justice issues they may have a concern about. And so it allows the balance of both worlds, a philanthropic platform for the company and an individual marketplace for employees. So what's in it for the company? It's, that allows them to really engage their employees in things like volunteering with, minimal administrative overhead, allows fidelity and trust that you're going to get money to where it needs to be through their United Way system. It allows you to, a company to have, not have to create the content pieces for their employees, which tends to be, challenging sometimes. So it's really a turnkey philanthropic, almost like I'd say your philanthropic foundation in a box for a company that allows people to engage in the community as they wish and as they see fit. And then our value prop to that, just to be, add into that, is we really can help the company with our profound amount of experience. We can help a company really craft strategies to improve brand, volunteer engagement, skill-based volunteering, public policy and advocacy positions. We are in every congressional district in America. So we have incredible assets for a company to really use, and the technology just makes it turnkey and holistic and easier for them to use and provide to their employees.
So things I like about Philanthropy Cloud is that you just talked about the power of and I've been talking about that for decades, in that you want the individual to, especially now, to use their agency about where they're going to donate, but the company also needs to communicate one of its or two of its focused areas, because it just can't be a mosaic. The mosaic has to add up to a whole. So that's really powerful. The second thing is the portability. That this is like your Facebook page or your Instagram account, and that it's my understanding that employees, when they go to the next job, they still have their dashboard of all of their interests. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're building portability into this, so eventually it becomes your place for philanthropic engagement as you move out of a company. We're designing how you move between companies, but that is the notion, and so you're allowing a real value to your employees because they can use the system. It allows them to also track their own personal giving and volunteer history, so they can I don't know about you, but I just went through my April 15th tax prep. Where did I give my
okay.
But it was great. I used Philanthropy Cloud to actually pull it up. It gave me a report on what I'd given this year. Was actually extraordinarily helpful. But it's also from the company side, they can also provide the reporting on employee hours against the sustainable development goals. I would say Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud is about providing relevant value to both the individual and the business consumer.
How has the rollout been? Because I know that, yes, you've done this at the national level, but the rubber meets the road, or the dog hunts at the local level.
Well, my role is probably, the least relevant part of the story. I mean, my job is to figure out how to, orchestrate the trains and make sure they all run on time. And frankly, I've got a team that does, as you know, most of the work for me. So I've got a pretty easy job, Carol.
Anybody listening to this, utilize that when you have your review.
That's right. In reality, I think, I look at this as it's a journey. The two cultures of the companies, United Way and Salesforce, are, as you would guess, vastly different.
Wildly different.
Yeah.
Wildly.
So one Salesforce has an agile try and if it doesn't work,
fail fast.
Yeah, exactly. United Way does not like to fail. United Way does not like to do things that might fail. So you have an inertia of, and we have this inertia of our old business model that is, slowly atrophying, but still is our business model of the day. So my experience has been, it's a tough job in terms of the power of the national organization to dictate terms to affect, the local market is loose. So I don't have like, command to say, hey, everybody should be on this platform and
right.
So it's more of I think it's a delicate balance. We're really trying to build a partnership with our local markets to let them play to their strength. And really, the question I keep asking and have asked this year is, how do we provide value? If you ask me how this first year has gone, I think there are a lot of positives that have come out of this last year. I look at SBC, Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud, and this effort as a great metaphor. This is like remodeling your kitchen. Okay. And so you may want to go into your house and you say, well, I need to modernize, the cabinets. And then when you remove the cabinets, you realize that, it's a little bit of cascading. So when you think about United Way, Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud is forcing us to modernize every single aspect of our business. Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud requires us to have a different relationship with our customer, to be asking different questions. Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud requires us to have a different mode for delivering content. It means we have to manage data differently. It means we have to be a lot more perceptive on partnerships and how we think about partnerships with agencies that we work so diligently with across the planet. So it's great because it's driving a lot of modernization across the board from everything we do. I think this has been it's obviously a challenging implementation, but I'm really excited because I think we start to see the benefit of this actually happening, where we're getting to some major decisions in the network where I believe the future of sustainability is possible if our network really comes together as one powerful network, which I think it will.
And do you must have KPIs in terms of, how many of your locals are you going to penetrate? How many corporate partners? And so can you share those with our listeners?
I can't share the specific metrics with you, but the KPIs we are looking at are things exactly like you said, like how many local United Ways are part of what we call digital services, which is our our vanguard of our nonprofit agencies that are working with us to modernize how they engage the individual. And this includes Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud. So we have metrics and KPIs clearly around, the number coming in. We're building and have built metrics around, what we call digital readiness. What does a future of United Way look like, and is it local ready, and how do we convert them? Some of this is unknown. One of the big challenges you have is there isn't a roadmap, Carol, unless you have one or somebody out there has one for me that says, here's how you convert a 130-year-old federated organization to a new way of business. So a lot of the things we're doing, and Salesforce loves this because they're more comfortable at it, is agile in trying to adjust. Let's take this approach and see if this works or doesn't. And that's a cultural shift that you're in. The mindset shift you have in United Way is one of moving toward trust, moving toward growth. And then we have, obviously, just to finish your question, significant numbers of KPIs on customer success and corporate engagement. Are the customers happy? Are we seeing growth in their business as well as ours? Are we meeting their KPIs for delivering value in terms of retention and engagement and volunteering, things that they care about? And so, what I would say to one of the fundamental shifts is that, to be United Way, it's about value to the customer. And so KPIs are being designed all around, are we really creating that value, and are we honest about it? And I think that's a fundamental, because once you get KPIs and you're honest about, hey, this is working, or more importantly, this isn't working, then it gets exciting, because then you can really contour strategies and things that work for your company is different. It gets really fun.
KPIs for fun. We're going to have to do that as a sidebar book. That's a great insight for any of our listeners. They don't have to be a not-for-profit. They can be, a company that's turning 50, 70, 100, 125 years old. So KPIs and embedding them into your transformation are key. What are one or two other ahas that you gained in terms of, and this, you're in the middle of the transformation, so it is a journey, but any other insights you can share to our listeners?
Well, I think there's a whole list of things, I think, and I'm happy to go through them in more detail. But I think the ahas I've had to starting this job, and I've had a history of pretty scary, large scale transformations involving technology. I think the first aha is always one that I'm constantly reminded of, that this, no matter how much I think I'm communicating or how much we are communicating to either the customer or the local markets, it's never enough. Okay. It's always a fundamental. It's a lesson we keep learning. And the second thing is, I think the shift to growth from the protectionist view of, I'm protecting my business model, my relationship, and the ability to take a risk, and how you really help people, have a desire to take a risk and go off the diving board, so to speak, has been another key takeaway. And I think, and I'm always open for help on, getting people to, first of all, getting the right message to the right people is one thing, but getting them to actually take the step off the board and say, okay, we're not going to do an annual campaign with this customer. We're going to go to an evergreen philanthropy and trust the platform. That's a big aha. The last one I'd say on aha is to be really, it's not even an aha. It's a takeaway for me. Like, I tend to be really impatient, pretty hard on myself as far as how we're driving this. And I think these kind of transformations take time. You're not going to see results real time. It takes multiple iterations and persistence that I think so people out there that are doing digital transformations, I'm right there with you in terms of that it's okay to take the time you need, but at the same time you're feeling enormous pressure to move the markets. So I guess I'm not sure I'm communicating this the right way, but the resiliency, we talk about sustainability, inclusiveness, and resiliency as part of our fundamental strategy going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that applies to the actual change agents as well, that, it requires a significant amount of inclusion, to others. It includes a significant amount of resiliency in terms of not taking the feedback, and when you stumble, not taking that personally, but bouncing right back. And then the third one is sustainability around, are we driving value, and is that converting to a sustainable financial business model? So I could talk all day about the ahas or the what I didn't think about when I started versus what I am now. And I'm sure a year from now, I'll look back and say, I was dumb a year ago. You know what I mean? Like, you're always learning,
right?
And be open to that learning experience.
So are we going to hear about a new group called Digital Transformation Anonymous? Which I'm sure some of our listeners are going to go, oh, what's his email? I've got to talk to him. I am just drowning in transformation.
Carolyn, maybe you should help facilitate. I really think, we have a tremendous amount of chance. What, gives me hope in America, like right now, it's a pretty dark time. But what gives me hope is that I know people listening to this podcast, and I know people in the United Way network who are absolutely killing themselves to make the world better. And I think we're also in the nonprofit sector extremely hard on ourselves. So I think that kind of group, and all joking aside, is I'm just trying to say that I don't think we're alone, and I think that if we could actually support one another, I think the world would be a better place. But it can be pretty lonely sometimes when you're driving these kind of major
amount of change. Oh, well, when I started doing companies and social issues in 1983, and it was like, I looked around and we had a table for 4 in New York to discuss it. And it was not until, you're funny, not until 2 decades later that all of a sudden, there are conferences and there are titles and it was really lonely. And those who have heard me speak know that my joke was I was 6 feet tall when I started, and now I'm only 5 feet, but I'm not going to get any shorter. Let's just see if we can get any of our listeners to say, hey, you got to create that Digital Transformation Anonymous. I did not want to leave this interview without talking about Up Purpose. And that's a social enterprise that you have created to compete with me and others in the field. So I want to know more, so I know about how you're going to help. I'm kidding aside, how you're going to really help the transformation of the purpose of your customers. So tell us more about that.
Well, I think there are 2 parts to that. So one, I hope it's not a competitor to you, but if it is, bring it on. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
About a year ago, actually, when we started looking at the capabilities needed for us to be successful, there really are 3 buckets to the strategy for United Way that are pretty fundamental. One is exceptional digital content, coupled with exceptionally good services, and then anchored in platforms that allow us to have in the enterprise growth. So if you think about those 3 bubbles, those 3 Venn diagrams. When you think about having, shifting United Way to a model where you're engaging a user, whether it's through Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud or through other digital channels or even email campaigns, the amount of content you need and the way and the high quality levels of content you need is critical. So one thing we discovered pretty quickly was that we did not have the internal capacity and speed to really generate the digital campaigns that we needed to. The second thing that was really fundamental was this: we also realized pretty quickly that we're a unique organization to the degree that we have these federated footprints around the world, and we needed technology that allowed us to take that content. So not just create content, but actually catalog and manage and index content in a way that we could get those assets to market quickly. It's a shame right now in United Way, great content that may be created out of Dallas or Los Angeles, is not shared with a Denver market or Twin Cities. We don't see each other's content. We don't know how each other's content performs against demographic. So what Up Purpose is designed to do is two things. One is to help us bring great content to market quickly, which they're doing, and we're thrilled with the results there. But also integrate a technology platform that allows us to manage. And that second part is really key. The ability for us to see each other's impact, work, and strategy and content will be game changing for United Way, because you have markets 1,133 in the United States alone.
Wow.
All thinking, basically acting on their own in terms of content curation, management, and service delivery. So we believe that Up Purpose is, we first of all, I'm an entrepreneur, believe in the power of social enterprise and entrepreneurship, and I'm not apologetic about the use of capitalism in terms of philanthropy to drive better results. So Up Purpose can help serve my needs. It means I'm not paying a creative ad agency 40% on market for our campaigns and content. It means that I'm getting consistent value and analytics real time on how I'm delivering content and publishing it. And third, it allows me also to go to every agency in the planet and say, we would love to help you get your digital content to market. Nonprofit agencies are not our competitors. We are the great enabler. We raised, as you said, nearly $5 billion, and nearly $5 billion goes out to the best performing agencies around the planet. And we're going to continue to be about that. We believe in United Way, strong communities, resilient, inclusive, sustainable communities. At the foundation of that are fantastic NGOs that are strong, healthy, vibrant. We want to be part of that equation. So Up Purpose has a charter also to be in that place, as well as you know, Carol, corporations are always looking for great digital content that they have a hard time producing themselves. So if I've got a customer that really wants to profile their volunteers at work and highlight how they're making a difference, or build collateral around digital content campaigns around things they care about, but they don't have either the expertise or the capability or capacity, Up Purpose is perfect for us. We can actually come in and actually, help them get their market better. So we think it's a risk, and with any social enterprise, but it's an exciting opportunity to put the market forces to work for us, to to help us solve a problem, and I think reduce our operational costs.
So what's the marketplace response to it? What are the individual United Way's response? And also, do you have any corporates as customers as well?
Well, it's early on the, we just came out with 60 days as far as the launch. So internally, as far as our locals, they're actually very enthusiastic about it, and it's funny because the locals, they each have their own kind of local market providers of digital content. Some of it's good, some of it's not. They're very enthusiastic about the ability to have a shared content management system. That is a value proposition that I think is extremely high on the list. Even selfishly, just to be able to see how content performs across social and different studios, different channels. Sorry. And then the market, we haven't engaged heavily on the corporate side, which I can talk about in a minute where we're going there. But we do have other nonprofits that have reached out to the organization and have started those conversations. So I think market will determine. I think it's a wait and see, but we feel pretty good about it. What I will say, Carol, if I can, when we go to our corporate partners, we are packaging our own brand. You talked about the Live United brand as an evolution toward value. We'll be announcing next month our Shared Purpose brand for our corporate partners, and Shared Purpose will be how we package everything, including SPC, holistically for our companies, so that they can take advantage of the full offering of what United Way really should be and can be offering for our clients, and that would include services that Up Purpose would be providing for us, as far as, let's say, reputational or brand lift campaigns.
Okay. Well, we look forward to taking a look at it. I would be remiss if I did not ask you about your great insights for partnerships. I mean, you are all about partnerships, thousands and thousands of partnerships. So I'd love a few insights for those listening, whether they're corporates or not-for-profits. How can they do the dance better?
Yeah, I think that's a great, fantastic question. From our side, I think we're always challenging, what does it mean to build a great partnership, and how do you, and especially now when you have frankly, such high demand for people really to come together. My view is to really be creative. We're lucky we have a person here on our team who I'll give you a great example of a partnership in action, right? Where all three parties win. The Lyft rideshare program was brilliant. My colleague, Larissa riding on our team, helped design the rideshare program with Lyft leadership. And what it was is we have our 211 system in local markets. That 211 allows you, if you're someone in trouble, dial 211 and you get to an operator who can give you resources and referral services for help. Well, one of the biggest gaps in that service line that we can't fulfill very well in United Way is transportation. People call and they say, I can't get to my job interview. I can't get there. What do I do? And so we built the rideshare program where Lyft funded, a couple 10,000 rides through the 211. So the operator let's say for veterans in particular, a veteran would call and say they can't get to the VA. So the operator would connect to Lyft and we would be able to Lyft would get that ride at no cost to the veteran. And so it works in the magic triangle, right? It works on the company. They love it because it's great. They can use the capacity they already have, which is, the driver and the car, what they serve as far as platform. Works for the veteran who now has a way to get to the VA appointment. And it works for the community because it helps the community be more resilient, helpful. And then last, it helps in the middle, helps United Way because it helps tell a story of our value, which is that's partnership. And so the question I think in the 21st century is, at least for business partners, how do I understand the business value that's available to me? Do I understand the community need that could be applicably applied to that? And how do I bring them together in a way that both parties really win? And that's what United Way has been doing well, I think, for a long time. But I think we're taking it to the next level with digital because Lyft is not possible without in the digital age.
Right.
Lyft is a digital native company.
Right.
So I would encourage, and I think the other thing I'll say, just to be completely clear, is that we're always looking for ways to, change the game in terms of partnership. So to your listeners out there, our door is open to say, how people are envisioning, I would say unusual partnerships or thinking about things differently. I think today, and particularly in this day and age, it's a time to be creative and, show discard any shackles you have about perceptions of partnership and how they may actually work.
As you may know, we wrote a book in 2010 about partnerships because we really wanted not-for-profits to become even more powerful and engaging with their corporates. And we always find that when we meet with corporates and not-for-profits and they've got the book and they've earmarked chapter 7, which is the chapter on partnerships. And so you gave some tremendous insight here. So I really appreciate that. Unfortunately, we're going to have to soon wrap this up, but we have some questions that we love to end with. And the first is, who do you admire beyond the United Way for their superior purpose work? And it could be a not-for-profit. It could be a for-profit.
I think it's a blend of people. So I love Chef Jose Andrews out of Puerto Rico and his food work and how he's leveraging sustainability in Puerto Rico and really building resiliency in that community. I think he's one of my heroes. I love that guy. Greta Thunberg out of Sweden, who's the climate change advocate, stepping up and basically calling out my generation and older generations for not moving on climate change. I love the Parkland students and their resolve after the incident. And I think I really admire, and I'm lucky to work with some of the best companies on the planet, that leaders, what gives me, again, encourages and gives me hope is that I have an opportunity to work with people who really get it and are doing their best to actually make things better for all of us. So I think I'm lucky. I got plenty of people who I admire and inspire to be helpful for.
Okay, those are very, very inspiring and great. How about resources that you have to read daily, or other podcasts or websites, like just to keep you on top of, because this purpose field is just burgeoning.
Yeah, I'm drowning a bit in it. I'm kind of as you can tell, a bit of a mess, a little bit ADHD. It drives my team crazy. So I'm always fishing and hunting. I just read Gene Case's book, Be Fearless. Love it. I think highly recommend it. It's a good, manageable book to read and delightful. I have a resource dedicated on my team that feeds me the top 5 to 7 CSR articles across the the network
Nice.
every Wednesday. So I read that it's like a addiction for
Cliff's
me.
Notes. Cliff's Notes of Purpose.
And then I really try to make sure on my flight home I'm reading a book on something relevant to the work we're doing. And I feel like, frankly, half the time finding the freedom to learn is a challenge in this job, because you're running at a pace that you don't necessarily have the chance to do it. But I try to figure out how to find insight in the small drops. I don't really have necessarily a go-to backstop, frankly.
Well, there's a lot. And what we'll do, and we'll ask you to have your colleague send us their list, because we will post it in our show notes, so we can share them with others in the field.
She'd be happy to. We're all about open source and empowering people to, whatever information we can provide is yours for the taking.
So you've been amazing, and throughout the conversation, I've asked you for insights. So I'd love to end with, do you have one or two additional insights for a for-profit, a not-for-profit, for organizations looking, staring dead in the eye about digital transformation? What would you like to leave our listeners with a couple additional nuggets?
Yeah, I don't know where people are on the podcast. I mean, my view, I'm a 50-year-old male with a 6-year-old daughter, and where I'm at in my life, frankly, is how do we do something to make the world a bit better? So the nuggets I would leave you on are more personally based. That I hope that the perseverance and resiliency required now it's worth fighting for. More than ever. We need people to show up, stand up, be heard. Our democracy is at risk, and I think it's really. I think what I would leave people with is that you really can make a difference. It's really fascinating to me that I think we underplay that a bit. So the gem I would say is that it sounds kind of hokey, but the don't underestimate your power to really
individual power.
Yeah, and the second thing I'll say is that I think again, back to my earlier point, failure is an option here in terms of you got to learn to fail and fail fast. Gene Case talks about, crash and learn, which I love, which is that the ability to, set aside your ego, set aside your perspective, and try to put this in the vein of, as a servant leader. I can tell you, Carol, the last year I've certainly made plenty of mistakes. And that's okay. And it's hard sometimes to make mistakes, but it's become more comfortable for me because it's in the vein of really trying to learn how to do the work. And I feel like the best learnings I've had I've embraced that, what did I learn when I made a mistake, and then how do I grow from it? And that's real resiliency. And I would wish that on anybody who's really trying to drive an organization to the promised land, that we're going to get there. And that's what I say is that we'll get there together. So we can only get there together, not as the NGOs working in fractured individual silos. So let's form coalitions that work for the better interest of all of us and not just for each of us.
So thank you. That's just wonderful parting knowledge. I want to thank William Browning from United Way Worldwide for this incredible, insightful, and candid conversation. Show up, stand up, be heard. Use your individual agency, but also work in coalitions and collaborations, because there's a great need out there in so many areas. So I'm Carol Cohn. This is Purpose 360, and thank you for listening. And I always end with the question, what's your purpose?